pretty simple. To give a brief introduction of myself, I don't think I've seen like the 5 Greeks people. So my name is Yung Kwon. I completed 3 years at WT Woodson High School in Virginia, where I won the state championship and then qualified to the national. For the last 4 years, I've been debating at George Mason University, where we received the first round at large bid to ABT last year, which is pretty cool. And then I was 2A, 1N for the most of my debate career, so hopefully I will be able to kind of like spur my knowledge and experience of like giving a good 1NC. So number 1, goals. This lecture will teach you how to construct an effective 1NC. And it will teach you how to also deliver an effective 1NC. Speed is speaking, public speaking, so you have to be able to deliver an effective 1NC. And next thing, how to fake it well during the process. Because I think there's a little bit of psychological word theory component of the 1NC that I think is like super duper cool, kind of like trick the 2AC, right? And finally, what you do during tournament preparation and like pre-round preparation, or in-round preparation, right? Any sort of preparation, because the construction of the 1NC starts like way before you actually give it. Please make sure to raise your hand if you have any questions and try to stay off the internet so you don't get distracted. I actually strongly encourage that you write your notes on paper because I think that you can retain the information better, but that's a personal preference. Okay, 2. What constitutes an effective 1NC? What's the purpose of the 1NC? Is this time you raise your hand and answer the question? Yes.
So spread out into 2AC.
Sure, but what's the best way to spread out the 2AC? Yes.
Not only answer case, but also do effective off-case.
Well, what would be the effective off-case? Okay, offense.
Have lots of diversity.
Right, diversity. In my opinion, the effective 1NC is one that has a lot of diversity. I write diversity like 3 different times, underline it, star it, highlight it, bold it, box it, italicize it. Diversity just means that it gives a plenty of options for the negative in the later speeches. So try to determine whether or not like a speech is an effective 1NC or not. I try to think it back from the 2NR. So what are some of the 2NR options that you could be potentially giving at the end of the debate? Yes?
Like winning on a critique, winning on a dis-ad counterplan combination.
Okay, so critique. And presumably you'd also answer a case.
Yeah.
Dis-ad case, counterpoint case, totality.
Yeah. DA case. Did you say counterplanning case?
I mean, counterpoint dis-ad.
Sure. Counterplan. And let's say just like some form of benefit. What was the other one? T. Yeah, T. So obviously 1NC needs to have all of these options available. So you would have K, counterplan, DA, maybe another DA, maybe another counterplan, and case. So it's 5 off. There are a bunch of different block options that you could give. In my opinion, if you have like about 4 off-case positions, I think it provides like a lot of like good enough flexibility for the block and later collapsing down into 2NR. This sort of the process that we just went through is sort of the same process that you should go through when you're preparing for a tournament. You should never try to construct a 1NC on the spot. Before the tournament, you have to go through a list of teams, right? And then look to their case list. See what kind of cases they're running, and come up with sort of like idea of what you're going to do in the 1NC. If you're trying to create 1NC on the spot, I think it's going to be super caterable. because it's not going to be effective. You probably won't discuss any different like strategic purpose of like reading particular positions, right? So this process of constructing 1NC always start way before the actual speech. Another importance of putting 1NC together, do not waste your time. But waste 2AC's time. It's all about screwing up the 2AC. Only read arguments that you will plan or able to go for in the block. How many of you are like more policy oriented? Raise your hand. How many of you read the K anyways when you're not going to go for it ever? Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. Like, 2AC will not even like, waste time. They'll just say like, put one Isaac util card framework and call it a day. Because you're just going to be the hedge advantage anyways. Right? So like, don't waste, if your time, just like fill it with a different counterpoint that could potentially resolve the app. Like 2AC will probably spend more time because it's more viable threat against the app. There are instances where you can read like a throwaway DA that you know will definitely not get like impact turned or link turned. So last year for the college topic, it was a legalization topic, and one of the popular policy affirmatives that were read was like we should legalize online gambling, and then like we had this DA that's like Caribbean economy, but like who gives a F about Caribbean economy? So like it's like a throwaway DA. We read it anyways, but like 2AC spend at least like a minute answering it. That would be like a good time trade-off. But you obviously don't want to be in a position where like app link turns the Caribbean economy DA. We were like, what? Right? So make sure to waste 2AC time, not your time. Number 3, what type of off-case arguments should you read in the 1NC? Is it smart to read 7T violation in case? Who has ever done that? No one. Good. Huh? What did you say? 4T violation? Yeah. Did you have an answer?
No, I did it once during my notice here.
Okay, but no, not anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. 7T violations not smart just because, well, first of all, you're not going to find 7 different T violations. That just like doesn't make any sense. But you want to have a diversity. You have to continually ask yourself, why are you reading that particular position? Like, this question is like very, very important. It's a very simple question, but I think it's sometimes like people just like overlook this. Only read the position that's worthwhile for you. Okay, tips for reading topicality or theoretical argument in the 1NC. Can someone tell me when you should read the T theoretical violation or specification arguments? Yes.
You can either read it because it's a good time, so we could read it because they're a very tiny app, and you probably weren't able to prep for it very well.
It's a tiny app.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
If they're breaking a new app and you don't have like a long-term strategy.
Sure. Yeah, tiny app, a new app. You probably want to like kind of test whether this app is topical. So that's the time that you throw out your very like regular shell, maybe like T restriction, right? Or T domestic surveillance. Yes.
To supplement another strategy, for example, the expected notice.
Right. Plain text says the United States federal government. You did not read A-spec. You read a court's counterclaim. What's the 2AC going to say? Huh?
We are the courts.
We are the courts. Perm did the counterclaim. Then your court's counterclaim is gone because you didn't read an A-spec. That's awkward. What's other instance where you should read T or specification arguments? I think this one is very
It's a good time trade-off.
short.
If the app isn't topical,
Yes, if app isn't topical, you should definitely read topicality. But I would strongly encourage that T or theoretical arguments be in the 1NC. I don't care if app is not topical. Read one if you want to read like 10 seconds A spec shell. That's not relevant. Read one. The reason why you would do that is because the app makes arguments on topicality or specification that you can cross-apply to a different parts of the debate. 2A's, raise your hand. What do you say on topicality at the very bottom? Reasonability. What other things do you say before you say reasonability? Huh? Not a voter. Potential abuse is not a voting issue. What can you do with those arguments when app reads conditionality? Cross-apply them, right? You could be like, you should not vote on potential abuse. Reasonability is a frame for determining theory debates, right? So all the stuff that app puts on those two arguments could be something that you could use later to defend yourself against theoretical arguments deployed by the app. Okay. How long should topicality positions be? What do you think? Yes.
30 seconds to a minute top.
30 seconds to a minute. Any other opinions? If app is really untopical, would it be smart to read like 50 seconds very short T shell? Why not? Yes.
If an app's topical, they'll be prepped for it, so they'll read like 40 minutes of T and then like your other strategic options to go into that.
Sure. I would say like, if app is like really not T, then you should have a really long T shell. Define multiple words. So it's not just domestic surveillance. You're defining United States federal government should curtail its domestic surveillance. Maybe app violates multiple portions of the resolution. The more words that you define out of the resolution, it makes your T position more credible, and more likely Tracy will spend a lot of time answering the T. So it's always a good time trade-off, and you might even go for it, right? So make it long. You should be careful when you're reading multiple topicality violations that they do not contradict. For example, you have defined domestic surveillance to be made geographically in the US. You cannot define in the US in the resolution to something that is not geographical. Does that make sense? A smart 2As should be making the argument that if they read multiple topicality violations, they can only go for that as one. Because it doesn't make sense for you to be able to kick interpretation and say, like, we're just not going to go for that interpretation, right? So make sure that all of your words that you're defining actually tell a coherent story as opposed to telling arguments like, that makes sense, that does not make sense. Reading good evidence on T matters. Topicality is one argument that it requires a very technical debating. Qualifications of people that you read matter because they have implications to whether or not plan sets a good limit or your interpretation sets a good limit. Is it a predictable limit? Is it a precise interpretation? And this is also good when you have to fake it in the 1NC process. You don't want your interpretation to be Google, and the 1A is coming up and like grilling you on cross-ex questions. They're like, your interpretation is from Google, right? That's like very embarrassing cross-ex. Kind of tells from the get-go that you're really not serious about your TD argument. And 2As will not spend that much time on it. When you're preparing for a topicality argument, try to cut a specific violation to the app. So my coach used to tell me that when I get to a room I'm debating app, as soon as I know what the app is, he told me to look it up in dictionary. The words in the plan, words in the resolution, find a violation that like plan violates. You could also go to their case list and look up their solvency advocate. Maybe something that they have put on there is like not topical, maybe plan isn't topical. Sometimes Team Sun might open source, so they might put their like 2AC blocks on their wiki. You should be going to their wiki, look up their sites, go there and read if there are any portions that might sound like a violation, you should cut them. That's a good use of preparation time. Okay. Any other questions for T? Cool. Tips for reading disadvantages in the 1NC. First of all, DA is awesome. You should read them. DA is awesome. You should read them. Why? Why should you read a DA?
Because they're awesome.
Huh?
Because they're awesome.
They're awesome. Why is it awesome?
Because they can be net things.
Huh?
It can be net benefits for like counter plans, or like with you can just do a whole bunch of stuff with them.
Right. So it's a net benefit to the counter plan. Why else? Yes.
You can also win by combining it with like by arguing that the with this admin case, so it's
Yeah.
like a component.
Like
to,
you
two
don't
different
win
strategies.
around if you don't read a DA. It's your offense. Uniqueness. What type of evidence should you be reading in the 1NC?
Qualified and warranted evidence.
Qualified and warranted evidence, also important for the rest of the debate. What else? Recent. Recency matters. I was one time judging this like debate, and the negative came up, and they were like, "It's elections DA." It's like 2 days after the elections, right? Like that's obviously a very like extreme example, but you always want to read like very recent evidence. In fact, I like when you read the uniqueness evidence, instead of like when you're reading, you always read like last name of the author and the year in which the card was written, right? Instead of that, for the uniqueness cards, I would just like read the last name and the date in which the evidence was written. So instead of like Gloria in 15, I'd be like Gloria in like 7-4, right? Your uniqueness evidence should also be predicted. You don't want it just to be a snapshot. Can anyone tell me what I mean by predicted versus snapshot? Yes?
It like assumes trends that are going to happen later, not just like what's happening right now.
Right. You want to have a trend. For the politics DA, you want to have a card that's like, there might be momentary controversy over TPA, but eventually it passes. That's a trick that you should be using every time when you're debating uniqueness. Trends over snapshot tells a better story, right? Links. What type of evidence should you read for links?
Very specific, yes.
Specificity. Write that 3 times. Specificity, specificity, specificity. Well, what do you do if you don't have a specific link card when you got to the debate? Yes.
Look at their evidence.
Look at their evidence? Yes. What should you also do? Yes.
If you only have a general link, you can apply the link there, or like, make it so it seems more specific.
Yeah. Sure. What do you do during pre-round prep? Huh? Cut the card. Plan is like super specific. You don't have a card that says this plan is like unpopular. Go to Google. You can probably find a card within like 5 or 10 minutes that says plan is super duper unpopular. Or it turns out that plan is super popular, maybe you don't read a politics GA. Right? Impact. Should you go big or should you go small?
Big.
What are big impacts?
Nuclear war.
Okay, so when we talk about impact, we're not going to say nuclear war or extinction because every impact gets to nuclear war or extinction. So when I say impact, I mean specific like scenarios. So
Economic collapse.
economic collapse, hedge, climate. Okay,
U.S.-China relations.
sure. I'm gonna set that aside for a second. But hegemony, economy, climate, those are the things that I call structural impacts. Those impacts are very, very useful if the 1AC is reading like a lot of different impacts, like small impacts. So when I debate like MSU teams, they always read like 12 different impacts in the 1AC. That's just like a lot of different stuff to answer, right? But it turns out all of those impacts are like wars in different places. There's like Russia war, there's like China war, there's like war in the Middle East, there's like war in Africa, etc. If you have a hegemony impact, you can make a story about how hegemony controls all of those like different conflicts, right? Contains them, so it solves them. Same with the economic collapse. You can say that global economic collapse causes conflict into all of those hotspots, right? So DA would obviously turn the 1AC. Same with warming. You could be like, people don't have water because it's all drying out. That causes conflict in a bunch of different places, right? Those big structural impacts are useful when the 1AC is reading a lot of different impacts. But if the 1AC does not have like that many impacts, let's say it's just like 2, what impacts would you want to read? You could still read structural impacts, but what other impacts that you could read? Huh?
A war scenario.
A war scenario, so like U.S.-China relations, right?
Impacts that like interact with their impacts.
What do you call
Like
that?
somehow turn their impacts.
Okay, so what do people call impacts that interact with 1AC's impact? I heard someone say it. Yes? Internal. Yeah. Do you want your DA impact to be internal or external? Why external?
You can like generate offense outside of the one you have activity.
Right, offense, offense, offense. You don't want to be in a position where you go for the same impact as on 1AC because Twitter will just come up and say that, oh, we solved the impact, right? You want to have something that is external. But coming back to the discussion of small versus big, if the 1AC doesn't read that many impact, I would say read a small impact that is like pretty fast. So like U.S.-China war that's like coming next month, because you can tell us a good story about why time frame comes before everything, right? Another important thing to note is that look for a contradiction. So let's say 1AC read a bioterror impact. Can anyone read this, by the way?
No.
Okay. I'm not even joking about it. Okay. 1AC read a bioterrorism impact. Your impact to the politics CA happened to be disease. You read the politics that said now you are moving on to bioterror advantage. You read an impact defense to bioterror that says public health measures solve disease outbreaks, so there's no impact to bioterror spreading. What did you do to yourself? Yeah, you took out your own offense. 2AC will just cross-apply that card, kick the bioterror, also get rid of your politics DA, and read like 5 different add-ons. That's pretty like sucky for the negative to handle. Your DA impact is China war. App reads on Asia advantage. impact to the app is Asian conflict. If you said no Asian conflict, what would also take out? China war. This happens like more than usual. Like I had this like happen once like during like a very important debate at like the ADA national tournament. App was reading like the Russia advantage, our DA impact was about Ukraine. We said no Russian aggression in the 1NC to answer the Russia advantage, and they just cross-applied that, so we're just kind of screwed. And you obviously don't want to be in that position. Tips for reading counterplans. Be careful on the counterplan text. Be careful on the counterplan text. This is like one place that you cannot mess up. So one time Kyle and I were debating on the energy topic, and then we literally changed our counterplan text like 5 different times. Like 5 different times. And we took like 2 minutes of our preparation time just to like get it correctly. It was like an app that's like we should increase nuclear energy, and we were reading state's counterplan. But for that tournament, Kyle kind of had a different trick to state's counterplan. So we had like a bunch of different planks to the state's counterplan that we could have read. I forgot to include them in the 1NC. So initially I read it and Kyle was like, no, we're gonna correct it. And then he had to write a bunch of different texts during the middle of the debate, which I missed the 1NC time. And then while Kyle was typing that out, he forgot that it was like nuclear energy. And then instead of putting nuclear energy, he said we should do states things for wind energy. So we messed that up. So we had to correct it again. And then I corrected it. I only corrected it for the first part, didn't correct it for the rest of the counterpoint text. Then I was like, okay, that's awkward, but I'm just gonna go back and write like wind. But by the time that just happened, just like, what exactly is a counterplan? Like that's like very extreme example, but like you still want to have your counterplan. You like double check it, triple check it to make sure that it's like actually like it's a actual app. So one instance that I see this happen a lot is like let's say an app has like 2 different planks. So for example, section 702 app that we put out, what are 2 planks of the 1AC plan? What does it do? Hands? Yes.
It makes 702 the sole authority for being able to surveil,
Mm-hmm.
and changes foreign intelligence to national security.
Right. There are 2 different distinct planks that if you forget one, the 2 ways will generate offense off of. They're going to say solvency deficit. Counterplan doesn't do that. You're reading court's counterplan. You're like, court should do the plan and insert the plan text. You only put the first plank. You're screwed. Make sure to include both planks or all the planks of the plan in the counterplan text. You should also make it grammatically correct. English is not my first language, so I have this like problem all the time. So I apologize if I make like grammatical mistakes and like grammar Nazis, like any of you, or just like take off. But like sometimes I just like write stuff that like makes no sense. You want your counterplan text to make sense. If it doesn't make sense, 2 ways it will just come out and be like, this doesn't make any sense. Solvency deficit. Next point, know the purpose of reading different forms of the counterplan. I say there are 4 general categories. First is uniqueness counterplan. When do you use uniqueness counterplans for?
Oh, yeah, to generate uniqueness for this.
Generate uniqueness for the DA. You're reading spending DA, and it turns out government just spent like $5 trillion on highway projects. That's a lot of spending. You're like counterplan, you're just gonna reverse that spending, just cancel it. Next category, advantage counterplans. Kind of self-explanatory, but what do you think advantage counterplans do? Yeah.
Solves a
So it could be, it doesn't have to solve both, like all the 1AC advantages. But if you're like, this like hedge advantage is like super fantastic, which like all hedge advantages are, maybe read like a counterpoint that solves hedge advantage. Or if you know a particular team just likes to go for hegemony all the time, then you might want to just like read the counterplan just to screw over 2AC in the one-year strategy. And often advantage counterplans are useful because actively doesn't have like a good answer to it. Because it's just like not predictable. Like negative could just pick a random action that they could do that's like solves hedge. Like AF will probably not have a specific solvency deficit to the counterplan. Next categories are just like counterplan that does try to solve the AF, like full AF, right? Like agent, process, consult, all the consults are horrible. Conditions, like other counterplans that potentially does the whole app or solve the whole app. Those are like obviously useful because it solves the whole app, right? And next categories are picks. Everyone knows what picks are, right? Plan inclusive counterplan, we're just going to pick out of one part. Now, when you're reading solvency evidence, what kind of evidence should you be reading? Green MacBook.
I guess solvency application.
Yeah. So what type of solvency advocate? It has to be a solvency advocate, first of all. Yes.
Specific.
Specific, right. Specific. That's going to be repeated a lot throughout the lectures, specific and diversity. It's often helpful if you have a 1AC author that kind of concludes the counterplan. It's a good idea. You can go through, read the 1AC solvency advocate or internal links. Oftentimes, what app teams will do is like there's like a very giant article, and then the first part of the article is describing like what type of action should we do. And then the later is like policy proposals. This is what we should do. But app teams don't cut the second part because most of the things that they say we should do are like not topical. It's usually like a bullet point list of like all the things that we could do, right? Neg teams could just like cut the second part, be like your author concludes negative, solves the whole app. And if you're reading an author from the 1AC, you should definitely mention it in your speech. So like, let's say your author is like Patrick. 1AC author is like Patrick 15. If you're reading a counterplan solvency evidence from the same author, you should be like Patrick, 1AC author in 15. And just read the card. Then judges will know that the 1AC's own author kind of concludes that it goes negative. Then it becomes very difficult for the 2AC to make any like solvency deficit because like they kind of contradict what their own author said we should do. Right? Net benefits should be very, very clear. There are internal and external net benefits. Can someone tell me the difference between the two? Yes?
External net benefits are like from a GDI, while internal net benefits are something that the counterplan has itself, like reason that.
Right. Can you go for the internal net benefit if you don't have it, if you don't go for the counterplan?
No.
Not really. So on the democracy promotion topic, a counterplan that we ran is like, instead of the US government doing it, we should let Canada do it. We let Canada do it and like said the Canadian soft power was an internal net benefit. It's like pretty stupid, but you can go for the soft power net benefit if you don't have the counterplan because counterplan kind of provides sort of uniqueness or action that is necessary to generate the net benefit. It's very, very good if you have both internal and external net benefit. So if the, let's say counterplan has like a politics DA as a net benefit and also has an internal net benefit, that's just like a lot of different stuff for 2AC to answer, right? So wasting 2AC time, very, very good. Theory. Only read the counterplan that you know you can defend. Do anyone read like consult counterplans anymore? Yeah?
Yes.
Well, good for you. Good for you. If you can defend consult counterplan, sure, go ahead. How many of you read like 4 different counterplans at one time? 3. 2. Most people. Can you defend 2 conditional positions are good? Yeah, that's like pretty reasonable position to defend. So just read a counterplan you know you can defend it because you do not want to lose on theory, right? That's like terrible, terrible. Feels so terrible when you lose to a theory argument when you're negative. This is another place that you should definitely read the judge philosophy. Like know you're a judge. That's like very, very important. There's a very popular judge on the college circuit in our district who says that conditionality is banned. Conditionality is not okay. A lot of freshman team, we debate them. We have the judge in the back. They don't read the judge philosophy. Guess what? 1 NC is like 3 different counterplans. Then they're already lost. Another extreme example, but judges have very strong inclination on like strong disposition toward a particular standard when it comes to theory, like conditionality, what sort of counterplans are like good or not. So make sure to read the judge philosophy. Tips for reading critiques in the 1 NC. So obviously, like other things that we have said so far apply. So like specificity is important. Alternative text you should double check. Should you go small or big on impact? Who likes it? Who are like K debaters here? Do you read like ethics impact and the 1 NC? Like what do you like to read usually?
Structural violence.
Huh?
Structural
violence. More obligation? Yeah. You're just really into it. Yeah, more obligation, ethics, yeah. I think this is like another like judge thing. I'd say if you have like a policy judge or like more right-wing judge in the back, I would say go big. Read an extinction impact, read a war impact. Because as soon as they read like Isaac Herd, like people just have bias towards like utilitarian impact. So I would just like 1 NC read like big impacts, and later in the blog you can introduce arguments like ethics, structural violence, value to life, and stuff like that, so that like it kind of like screws over the 1AR. But that's like another judge thing. What about the one-off case strategy? How many of you debated when they were just like, it's one-off, cap? How many of you actually read that strategy? Ooh. Okay, we're gonna talk about that for a second. What do you have to put in the 1 NC if it's like a one-off case strategy? Yes.
Like a lot of stuff that links directly to your advantages.
Right. So what's your favorite K of the day?
Probably cap. Yeah.
Cap. Love it. Cap. Athletes, hegemony, economy advantage, and the technological competitiveness. You want to read link evidence to every single one of them. And in my opinion, good link evidence also makes a turns case argument. What does that mean? Link evidence making turns to case argument. What does that mean? Someone who's not a K debater. A lot of hands went down. Okay. What does that mean? Okay, you can explain it.
So when your link evidence turns the case, it's basically that your critique causes whatever they're saying happens.
Right. So if you're reading a hegemony link to the cap K, your link evidence should also say that hegemony could be effective, but the way that we deploy hegemony is always based on the accumulation of capital, which causes inequality, that undermines power balancing, etc., which turns to the thesis of hegemony. Like you don't want your link evidence to be like, oh, but that's capitalist. Apple just the impact terms. So you need to garner some offense with your link cards. What about the impact level? Diversity, right? Read a lot, read many turns case arguments. And make sure that each card that you read actually has a purpose. This is like one thing that I stress in my lab a lot. Make sure that all the cards that you read are extended. This sounds like a very intuitive thing, but like it does not happen as often, right? If you have a very terrific turns case argument and the one is to make sure that they're extended. One-off case strategy. On a case, what do you do? What do you have to do? Yes?
Read impact defense.
Impact defense? That's good. Yes?
You could probably read more links to case argument.
Sure. That's another thing. I think for one-off case strategy, it's also helpful if you just like throw out a bunch of like things that are not related to the K that requires app reading cards. So 1NC, on the solvency contention, you're gonna put in like normativity card, Kepler 95. On the hedge advantage, you're gonna be like, apocalyptic rhetoric is bad, causes extinction. You're reading warming advantage, environmental security is bad. Based in nuclear war, you're gonna be like, nuclear war rhetoric is bad. They have like nothing to do with the thesis of the K, like if you're reading Cap K, for example. But if app concedes any of those evidence, then it's like auto loss, right? And all of those evidence require app to either read more cards or do like a bunch of explanations, so it's also a good time trade-off. So make sure that you do that. Tips for reading case arguments. First of all, you need to have case defense. Why? Why do you need to have case defense? Yes?
Terminal defense is good if you're going for offense on another close, but trying back in effective debate.
Right. You're not going to win if you don't have case deep. Because the app will just be relatively ahead in probability and risk because there's nothing said against the app. If they say anything on the DA, for example, then judges will just be like, but there's like 100% risk of the case, right? So you need to have a case defense. And the same logic of 1NC construction also applies here. Work back from the twin R. Case debate, you also don't want to go for everything. In the twin R, you want to collapse down to like one or two good arguments. Most likely like one good internal link defense argument and one impact defense argument. And work back. 2NC will probably have like, in addition to the two arguments that you really want to go for, it will probably contain like one or two more. And the 1NC should obviously contain more than that. Next is diversity. Another common theme of this lecture is diversity. You need to cover every portion of the case. So rank or uniqueness argument, internal links, impact. You cannot forget any one of those components. And internal link defense is particularly important because you're questioning whether an app is able to solve. As a 2A, it's like heaven when they don't say anything about internal link defense and 1NC just like all impact defense. Because a lot of times impact debate kind of like hinges upon internal link. So for example, you're reading economy advantage, right? And then app does not question the internal link. Let's say it's like a debt ceiling. And they're like, there's no impact to the economy. Maybe their impact defense does not assume the magnitude in which economic collapse happens. Does it make sense? Right? So internal link defense is important. And then this is also another time that you really need to like work during the pre-round preparation because a lot of times I've seen affirmatives be like, instead of having like 2 well-developed advantage, nowadays it's just like 3 different advantage that are actually like 6 different add-ons that are just like grouped together. So if you don't answer, like for example, it's like a last advantage that's like environment, and you forgot to answer the very last like add-on style advantage that's like plant somehow solves radiation, and radiation causes extinction. If you don't answer them, then you're just like, you're gonna lose, because of the relative risk of the GA is always lower if the advantages are not answered. Should you read offense in the 1 and C? What are people's opinions? Yes? Yes? I'm a little bit iffy about impact terms because I'm just like not really comfortable, but like internal link terms, sure. If stuff goes really bad, then you always have a counterplan to fall back on. I would say impact terms only do it if it really makes sense and serve a strategic purpose. Like remember, like I told you to like always think about why you're reading particular position. Only read it if it serves a strategic purpose. If it acts as like a trade and economy advantage, maybe data might make sense because it clashes directly with the act. Right? One end should be paying attention to the cross-sects of the 1AC. One end should be paying attention to the cross-sects of the 1AC because your partner will be tearing apart the 1AC. You do not want those arguments to go, like, to be gone. Incorporate them. You can kind of guess what your partner is trying to argue when they ask a cross-sex question. Maybe like, it was revealed that 1AC did not have like a unique defense argument. Maybe that's something to point out when you're reading the 1N, when you're reading the 1NC, like on the case below, right? So make sure to incorporate your partner's argument into the debate. Okay, delivering the 1NC. This has to do more with like a speaking or a speech component, but the goal should be to make sure that your judge understands your position in the clearest manner as possible, so that they don't have to read any evidence or wait for a cross-examination to figure out what the hell just happened. So that means, first you have to slow down a bit when you start out. Has a judge ever listened to you speak prior to 1NC? No. 1NC is like the first time that your judge hears you speaking. And I don't care if you're like the most clear person ever, the fastest person ever. Judges still need time, like pen time, need time to adjust to your voice. So I would say always start out in like 80% of your like full speed and gradually build up. And do some speaking drills. Do it before you leave the tournament hotel. Because I think that I always take at least like 1 or 2 hours before I'm able to kind of like go on full speed. So after you're done, like you took a shower, you are all dressed up, just like read for like 9 minutes. So that you can get into that like the rhythm. And then you should also time your speech. Because it happens that you have like 2 minutes left in your 1NC. That's like a lot of like time for the 2N to just like get a lot of stuff together. And then if you have like a lot of time left, or if you're like out of time and you didn't get to like the second advantage, that's like obviously not a good idea. Maybe that's the time to take out like one off-case position. And next, clearly label your flows. When you're like, next stop, counterplan text, blah, 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 I'm not going to get it. Say, next stop, transparency counterplan text. Next stop, politics GA, read the cards. Next stop, topicality, right? Label your flows. That's for organization, for the judge, for the other people. Let's talk about the order of arguments for a second. What do you think we should read at the very, very top? Yes. Yeah.
T.
T. one next? DA. So if you're one of those people who like really kind of like slow down when you like speak, you're just like always like 100% full speed when you start reading, maybe it's a good idea to put DA before T. I know, just something to think about. Because DA is like mostly like tag and reading evidence, so that judges are able to like adjust your voice. And topicality violation, you do not want your judge to kind of like second guess what your violation is. It has to be very, very clear. So maybe reading topicality as a second position means that judges will have a better time understanding your voice. Why do you put counterplan and case at the bottom of the off-case positions? Yes?
Because it's mitigating the case, not producing your own offense.
Right, mitigating the case, and it just takes a lot of time for Tracy to prep. So for example, if the counterplan that you're reading is like a very complicated pick, or a counterplan that you're reading has like a very, very long text, 2AC often have to read that for multiple times to figure out what exactly does the counterplan do. So it's like very, very prep intensive. That's also true with the critiques. You might not be reading the same alternative from the last debate, so app might have to take prep time getting like a different K alternative answer. So instead of reading reject alternative, at this time you're like, we should just be socialist. So they need to get their socialism alt answers. Right? Those are all prep intensive. The only time that I can imagine that you should flip the order is like if you have a very like cool new specific DA that you've never broken before. Put it at the very bottom because you want it to be a surprise, and then waste Tracy's time. Okay, and the counterplan, slow down on text, please. Please slow down on text. Judges want to understand what your counterplan does, so please slow down. Case arguments incorporate both analytic and evidence arguments. This is sort of the thing that we just talked about with the cross-examination. Pay attention to your partner. And make sure that every evidence is highlighted, right? Highlighted. If your counterplan, for example, is not highlighted, 2AC will probably not spend that much time on it because it means that you are not prepared to debate the counterplan. In addition, if you know that you're reading this counterplan shell every debate and it takes you like 2 minutes, that's too long. It's time to highlight it again. What I like to do is like I highlight in yellow first, and then when I go back and highlight it again, I use blue highlighting. And next time I'm reading that shell, I only read the blue. So that now instead of being 2 minutes, it's like 45 seconds. What should 2N be doing while the 1NC is being read? 2Ns. 2Ns, what do you do? Yes?
You flow their speech.
You flow their speech. You need to be reading along. This is particularly important when it gets to like case arguments, because case flows are usually the time that you run out. So if there are like a lot of internal link defense that are redundant, maybe tell the one to skip those 2 cards and move to the impact debate. This is another time that 2N could double check counterplan text, right? Make sure that it's like wind energy, not nuclear energy. All the planes are in there. If certain evidence is not highlighted because like it just happens, you're not perfect, you're accident prone, highlight the card before one gets to that point. And lastly, know your limit. If you're not that fast, don't put a lot of stuff in. What did we say? What's it like a good 1NC number of off cases? 4. 4 is pretty reasonable. Even 3 is fine if you're super slow. But know your limit. Cross-examination. 1N should be familiar with every position that you read. Tag team cross-ex is not really good. not only for the credibility of you as a speaker, but if it looks like your partner is answering all the T question, for example, you know that you're not going to take T. That kind of reveals what your strategy is. If you cannot answer K questions, it's all your partner. That's also kind of sketchy. So make sure that you're able to answer all the cross-ex questions. I don't care if you know it like in depth or not, just like bake it well. And then you also have to decide the status and the net benefits of advocacies beforehand. When someone asks what the status of the counterclaim, don't just sit there and argue with your partner like 30 seconds deciding what that is. Know it beforehand. Which you'd have already done if you looked at judge philosophy and try to work back from the 2NR already. Also with the net benefits, know which are the net benefits to the counterclaims. Because that also kind of changes the way the 2AC is done. Okay, we have 7 minutes left. If you have any questions, now is the time to ask. Yes?
So during the cross-ex and the 1AC, when they're giving you 1AC, can you give your partner a question answer?
So if you can also do that, but analytic arguments that you put on the 1NC don't have to come from your partner. So it doesn't even have to be in the cross-examination. If you just think that this advantage is like super shitty, then you're just going to be like, this doesn't make sense. You're just going to put down. Yes?
You said something earlier about a small lapse in US, but I don't catch what you were saying about.
Is that like in relations to T? So I was just saying that tiny apps that you might have never debated before, maybe just throwing out like